So welcome everybody. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Professor Tammy Kalber and I am the program lead for the MSc in Advanced Biomedical Imaging. Also we have Dr. Stephen Patrick, who is Deputy Module Lead, and we also have one of our alumni, Wan Shah, who will give you a student perspective later on. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen and giving you an overview of the course. And I'd just like to also tell you that where is my screen gone? Oops. Can't actually find it. Can you see that? Okay, so welcome. This session is going to be recorded, and this is just an overview of the course. The QR code will bring you to the course webpage for administration and give you all the information that you need there. So medical imaging has revolutionized medicine. So years ago, to be able to understand what went on inside the body, you'd have to use an invasive means of surgical exploration to find out what was going on inside. But now our medical imaging techniques, from the first ever image of an X-ray produced by William Röntgen, has developed further so that we can now look inside the human body by MRI, by this wonderful, beautiful MRI scan of the brain. We obviously know that ultrasound is used to look at babies' development in utero, and we have our nuclear imaging techniques that can look at the whole body uptake of specific radio traces. But in this MSc, we're looking at advanced biomedical imaging techniques. So this is a preclinical based imaging facility that can therefore develop new imaging techniques, such as injecting novel contrast into the vessels to be able to image the vessels within a mouse instead of just X-ray for the skeleton. We can develop novel radio traces that specifically target specific genes. We can utilize MRI to look at the structures of the three-dimensional walls within the heart. And we can also use it to look at injection of a number of cell bolus within the vessels of the skin. So these are the kind of images that we can now develop that are not what you would normally see in the clinic. So this is the overview of the MSc in Advanced Biomedical Imaging, the course structure. So we are broken down into 3 terms. It's a one-year course. The first 2 terms are taught modules, and the third term is a research project. So I'm going to go through each one of these modules in a bit more detail, but I just want to introduce you to the module leads. So obviously there's myself and Stephen, but we also have Daniel Stuckey, who's an expert in cardiovascular imaging, Mark Lithgow, who's an expert in neuro imaging and also science communication, Ian Harrison, who specializes in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's models, David Atkinson, who's a clinical scientist, Jack Wells, who also works in neuro imaging, and Richard Day, who leads our precision medicine module. So these members are from the Centre for Advanced Biomedical Imaging, which is where our imaging systems live, from the Francis Crick Institute or from UCLH. So the Centre for Advanced Biomedical Imaging has 14 state-of-the-art imaging systems. These are either magnetic resonance imaging, they're nuclear, they're based on ultrasound or light or X-ray. And obviously these are scaled down versions of the systems you can find in clinic, but there's also some novel systems that are under development that only can be used in mice and rats. And in the first term, we basically focus on the physics of how all of these imaging systems work and how they generate the images that you see. So this is more about kind of the physics side of clinical imaging. Obviously, we are working with animals within our preclinical research. So we also have a practical critical research module that focuses on using animals in research. And this also includes a home office personal license to be able to then move forward into an academic role, such as a PhD. We will also show you how animal research and imaging conforms to the 3 Rs of animal research: to reduce animal numbers, refine, and replace. Then the third one in module term 1 is the science communication for biomedicine. And this is really important because when you're going out to talk about your research into the community, there are different communities that you might present to. This might be a conference where you're presenting posters or presentations. It might be blogs, or it might be kind of press releases. It could be general discussions or working with the public when you're presenting to children. Then in term 2, we move to more from the physics of acquiring images to looking at how those images can assess pathology in disease models. So molecular imaging crosses all different kinds of diseases, but our diseases tend to focus on neurological changes such as stroke, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's, or oncology. So this is tumors within various tumor regions. So it might be brain, breast, pancreas, etc. And cardiovascular diseases such as myocardial infarction, where the heart becomes enlarged. And also translational clinical imaging. So obviously we want to kind of make new imaging sequences that would then move into the clinic. And obviously this has to have some sort of pipeline that moves forward with integration with clinical members. So obviously we have a lot of different UCL sites that are dedicated to the development of these kind of imaging processes, which are kind of mostly based with prostate, and also the first CT trial in lung for people that have high susceptibility for lung cancer. The last talk module is precision diagnosis for precision medicine, and obviously imaging plays a large part in trying to understand how specific pathology can be treated by tailored therapy. And this, therefore, is a kind of more of a biological diagnostic module that kind of links into this more imaging-based MSc. So finally, in the third term, you have your research project. This might be a laboratory project where you come into our labs and you work with your supervisor on a known project and acquire data that you can then use for your report. It might be working on data that has already been acquired, so images that are either from preclinical or clinical-based acquisitions, or it might be a literature-based project where you're working through data that's already been acquired to kind of collaborate studies over a wider field. And these research students go on to different avenues. So we have a lot of students that have gone on to PhD programs or research positions in academia. And they have been across not just the UK imaging kind of centres, but also further across international universities such as University of Tokyo, Stanford, and Harvard. Or they may go into research positions in industry. So these may be medical imaging or medical devices companies or pharmaceutical companies. The main ones being Visualsonics, GlaxoSmithKline, Bruker, and Siemens. So obviously, this is a lot to take in, and if anyone would like to come and visit UCL, I will be at the Life and Medical Sciences Postgraduate Open Evening, which is an in-person, face-to-face event on the 10th of June. So please come and visit me there if you would like to talk about this more. So lastly, I would like to now introduce our student perspective, which will be given by Wan Shah. She was the Dean's List winner in 2020-21. And the Dean's List winner basically means that she had the top graduation within a year, which is a very prestigious award, which is given for those that go above and beyond a first-class degree. She is now a PhD student within the Division of Medicine, and I hope that she can now give you her perspective of what it's like being on the course and her career journey.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay. So can everyone see my screen? All right, perfect. Hello everyone, I'm Wan, basically PhD student in the Division of Medicine, and today I'm going to share my student perspective as the former student for this MSc in Advanced Biomedical Imaging. But instead of making this like a formal timeline of my CV, I want to share it as a story. So basically, from where I started to what shaped my interest in medical imaging and how this MSc basically helped me find my way into research. So this is my journey before and beyond the MSc. So let's start with my undergraduate studies. It's like very smooth on the slide, but in real life, mine had a lot of turns, like doubts, decision, moments where I thought, okay, what am I doing next? But looking back, each stage can give me something different. My BSc basically gave me the foundation, my work experience showed me the reality. MSc basically helped me find my direction. And my PhD gave me problems, but problems that I genuinely care about. Okay, so my background, this is where my journey started before I came to UCL for my MSc. I completed my bachelor degree basically in medical imaging at a public university in Malaysia. And that was when I first realized that medical images are more than just pictures. At the beginning, I just see scan as shades of black, white, and gray on the screen. But when I study medical imaging, I started to realize that imaging is very special kind of language, a way of translating the hidden part of the body into something we can see, interpret, and understand. This is some things that I further learned into my MSc. This is, okay, so basically I graduated with first class, and the best part was getting a job as diagnostic radiographer in my hometown, Penang, Malaysia. So my hometown basically famous for its food, beautiful beaches, and for being very, very far from London. Okay, and then this is where, because of the academic downturn at that time, scholarship were almost impossible to find. So I ended up working first, partly for the experience and partly, let's just be honest, for this money. Okay, so this is what I love. This was the stage where I fell in love with medical magic because scanners are incredible machine. At this stage, I was fascinated by machine themselves. Like we have a lot of machine like Temi, just like show you guys just now. We have MRI, we have CT, we have ultrasound, we have PET-CT. They all felt like different language for looking inside the body. And then my love for the machine don't only mean the medical kind. This is also another mission that I love. This is less academic part of the story, but probably the most me part, my hobby. I always love machine, I always love motorbike. And weirdly, I feel the same about imaging. With motorbike, every small movement matters, balance matters, timing matters, control matters. And it's the same with imaging. This is something that I learned through my MSc as well. With imaging, every parameter matters. Your positioning matters, your timing matters, motion matters, and signal matters. So yes, this machine basically kind of get you around the road. But we also have the other imaging machine basically lets you look inside the body. But both machine, be like medical imaging or the motorbike, taught me the same thing. Machines are powerful, but only when we understand how to work with them. And I feels like, okay, this is time for me to this is because like my love for the mission because it's going to push me towards my MSc. I feel like this is time for me to move further up. I know I wanted to understand imaging at deeper level. And I'm so interested with how new imaging techniques are developed and how they can be improved and how imaging can be used in research, not just in clinical practice. For me, the MSc was not just another degree. It's basically the point where I started moving from clinical imaging to research imaging, which was the best decision ever in my case. All right. One thing that I really like about this MSc from my own perspective is that it doesn't force you into one box immediately. It's going to expose you to a wide range of imaging modalities and techniques. You have MRI, you have micro CT, you have nuclear imaging, you have ultrasound, bioluminescent, fluorescent imaging. So for someone like me who like crossing between machine, medicine, and data, that was kind of environment that I wanted because it gives me chance to explore before choosing what excites me the most. So I don't want to make a wrong decision. I just want to explore all the possibilities that I have. And when I look into UCL, what attracted me wasn't just the course. So, like I make my own research and then, like try to search for YouTube videos. And then I remember crossing across this video about the MSc. And honestly, after watching the video, I was like, okay, that was one of the moments that made me seriously think, yes, this is the course that I want to do. MSc Advanced Biomedical Imaging at University College London. And I knew I wanted to do this MSc because it offered the best of both worlds. On one side, it have the third module kind of give me the technical foundation. But on the other side, the research project give me the chance to apply that knowledge in real research setting. So killing two birds with a stone. So this is perfect for me. And that balance was exactly, sorry, the balance was exactly what I was looking for. Learning the theory while also gaining hand-on experience research. So this is basically the stage where I became fascinated by what imaging can actually do. It was no longer about producing a technically good scan. It was also about producing an image that could answer an important question. And I think this was the beginning of my interest in seeing the unseen. I think like this is super cool. Before my MSc, I had imaging experience, but I had never really worked in a wet lab. So a part of me wanted to explore what that could also be my passion, like this is what I love about KB, like you have chances to explore a lot of stuff. So I make use of it. Well, I started the project. I'm curious about wet lab and theranostics imaging. So this is me during my research project into the wet lab, dealing with like cell culture and stuff. Definitely new experience in which like I love. But I end up loving the image processing and coding part even more. So that was a turning point for me. I realized I enjoy not just acquiring images, but also working with the data afterward. Throughout like my research project, I basically like know 100% that I look forward to processing it and analyzing it. So the project did more than give me research experience. It helped me discover a part of imaging research that really excites me. So I know that I want to do research, and then I decided to pursue my PhD. So this is where I am now. To be honest, while waiting for, I'm not quite sure can I get the scholarship or not, I just try my luck. I just like send my CV to few, because I'm from Malaysia, so I send my CV as application specialist in Siemens in Singapore, and then I send for like research assistant in Abu Dhabi. If you guys know Middle East gonna get you got all your salary, there's no tax, so that's another option for me. And then third one, because I live Edinburgh, they got lecturer in medical imaging. I think I'm quite lucky because this one is after I graduate with first class, first class with I graduated with distinction from UCL from my MSc. So I was invited to all the three jobs that I applied to from Singapore, Middle East, and also Edinburgh, which is so good. But I also have received full funding for this PhD. So I decided that I want to continue my PhD, so not yet into working phase, because if I let go of this scholarship, this funding, I might not be able to get it later in the future. So this is where I am now. And my PhD brings together MRI and machine learning. So if you guys can see here, my machine learning mainly in cardiac imaging. In simple term, I work with cardiac MRI and I use machine learning to help analyze the heart. I would say always ask the PI, principal investigator, about potential project and collaboration, because if you don't ask, the answer is always no. Because as Tammy presented just now, this is like Daniel Stuckey, my very amazing and supportive supervisor. So like Daniel was my lecturer during my MSc, and then definitely like I'm kind of interested with cardiac MRI. But I know that I love coding, I love processing images, like analyzing like all those cardiac MRI images. So I was thinking like, can I do machine learning with cardiac MRI? And Daniels basically make this possible for me. This is what my project now, like it's like introduced me between MRI and machine learning. And I just published my paper, and then now people can just use our web app, just drop their file, and yeah, the segmentations are automatically done for them. So that's how I managed to do my MRI and machine learning study. And just gonna share you guys a bit of my photos recently. I feel like some journey take you to new places. So my PhD like bring me to all over the world. So basically in 2034, I attend basically ISMRM is like the biggest conference for MRI. So 2024, I went to Singapore. 2025 is this last year, I was in Hawaii. And then this year I just come back from Cape Town, and finger crossed next year in Vancouver, Canada. So, yep, this is like my sharing from perspective student. And if you guys have any question, like just feel free to ask me, Tammy and Stephen. Tammy and Stephen, they're very helpful, and then they kind of like my lecture during my MSc as well. Okay, so I'm gonna pass it to them. With that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Juan. Student, any questions? It's open to you for the panel now. We are happy to take whatever questions that you have. Let me kind of keep an eye on the chat. Please write your questions in the box so that we can read them out and answer them.
Or you can put your microphone on and ask us directly if that's easier, whichever you prefer.
Jim? So you should now be able to unmute yourself and ask a question directly, if that is easier. Bit more information about the projects, because obviously Wan found the project a very big help in understanding what she wanted to do. So within the first term, you will obviously meet quite a lot of your lecturers, and they're specializing in different imaging techniques. So obviously you will probably gain an interest in one technique more than another, maybe, or into a specific disease more than another. And we have a list of projects that you can choose from. Some of them are clinical, but these are using clinical data rather than clinical scanning. Or they might be preclinical or data image based. But if you have a specific project that you would really want to do, and you can go to talk to that lecturer, then you can basically develop your own project with that supervisor rather than picking off the projects list that you have. So I would obviously very much, if you come onto the course, to kind of be proactive and try to decide what kind of project you would like to do, because obviously then that will aid you in your next career progression moving forwards. There is a question saying how many modules/credits does each term have? So each of the taught modules is 15 credits, and the project is larger, so that's 60 credits. Part of the project is also slightly made up by this thing called a video project. And all the Division of Medicine MSc students have an allocation to be mixed to make a video project, which is also part of those credits, but it's a small amount. Is the program more focused on practical training or academic research? So the taught modules are mostly focused on academic research, and then the research project is, if you have a lab-based project, is practical training completely. So you'll be in the lab learning new skills. Any other questions? So I'm guessing with the practical training, if that's what you're interested in, because medical imaging is quite a multidisciplinary approach. So you basically combine biology with physics. So you can learn a combination of wet lab skills and also kind of animal handling skills. If you do your home office license, you require that license to be able to then go into a PhD position or an academic position to be able to utilize animals in research. So you would get those skills, and obviously data analysis, software programming, all of those skills. It depends on the project that you choose, what kind of skills you pick up. Do we get to choose our supervisors ourselves based on our research project, or will be allocated a supervisor? As I said a minute ago, if you are proactive and you really want a project, I would be very keen for you to kind of approach that supervisor. They're all very open to kind of what you want to do and chatting with students. Otherwise, if you pick from the projects that are allocated, then you will have to give a list of your preferences, and then you will meet with the supervisors, and then it will become more of a kind of allocation system. Yeah. So the other thing that we might want to mention is the student's background that we take on. So as I mentioned, that medical imaging is very much a multidisciplinary kind of combined science. So we take students from medical physics, medical engineering, biomed, biological kind of backgrounds, and also clinical backgrounds, and people that are interested in doing radiology. This is not a radiology accredited course, but it is a kind of stepping stone for moving towards that, if that's what you were interested in. Is the course computer programming based heavy? And if yes, is there a language that we preferably need to be familiar with? Juan, would you like to take that?
All right. So basically, it's not computer programming heavy because I start machine learning basically from zero. But that's from my PhD. For my master degree, I feel like you don't really know to know like how to do programming or like sort of like that, because these programs like sort of more towards like imaging kind of technique. So no worries if you feel like, oh no, like I don't know like any programming language. It's okay. It doesn't really matter actually. And then if you want to do like in my case, like I want to do my PhD like in machine learning, but have like zero. I started from zero from my machine learning part because my background is MRI. Yeah, but that is possible as well. Like I think I discussed with my PI, basically my supervisor. Like I took classes, I joined the MSc course and whatsoever. So that's for PhD. But for your master, you don't have to worry. It's not really programming heavy. Yeah, some of my friends like back then they didn't even know like how to use like Python and stuff. So no worries, you're in good hand. Yeah.
Yeah, there are also some kind of workshops and also
Yeah,
kind of
MATLAB.
MATLAB kind of exercises during a couple of the modules that you can be involved with.
And just like to add, like what I love about like my course previously is like because everyone's coming from like diverse background. Like when certain models gonna ask you like more about like engineering parts, and then some of them can focus more on the anatomy, some of those like more to like imaging techniques. So because like you guys coming from very diverse background, it's very nice. So when it's come to engineering part, so you're gonna go to like those coming from engineering background, and then where some modules gonna like a bit tough towards like imaging technique, so you're gonna go like from your friends like basically coming from imaging technique. So I think this is something that I'm gonna enjoy during my
Mhm. Fully funded by us or by institution or both. So the research project within the MSc is funded. You don't have to do anything. It's part of the MSc itself. So all we need to do when we're enrolled is find a supervisor, find a project, and that's it. It's part of the MSc. Have I missed any questions? Just checking. Thing that you want to kind of mention?
So I mean, just talking about the project. So if you want something that's programming related or involves coding or data analysis, we do provide a lot of those projects. So if you're keen on doing that, you can find a supervisor as that's a project. If you don't want to do that, you can find a project that's more wet lab based. So we do try to match projects up to a student's interests. So that sort of thing can be tailored towards your interests and what you want to do.
Mhm. Another question, does the program include hospital placement or clinical visits alongside laboratory work? So unfortunately, we cannot provide clinical projects at the moment because of the limitations of being within a clinical environment. We are hoping to provide some visits rather than like, or kind of like shadowing. But there are opportunities to work with clinical data. So some of the projects have anonymized clinical data for data analysis. And obviously within the clinical translational module, there's more focus on clinical imaging, not just the developments from UCL, but how we use clinical imaging in trials for new drugs, and also how we move developments of new imaging techniques into the clinic. So that's more the focus on the clinical side of things. But unfortunately, we cannot do clinical projects at the moment. The other thing to say is that some students find their own projects, not just within the clinic or within the Centre for Advanced Biomedical Imaging, but with industrial partners that we have, such as In Vitro, who are a nuclear imaging centre and also run a lot of now MRI and optical, or GSK. So it's not, nothing is impossible, but if someone wants to really do something and have a specific project, then please talk to us early on and we could try to facilitate whichever project we can do for you.
It might just be worth adding as well that often we have, one or two students staying on for PhDs in the department, going elsewhere for PhDs as well. So if this is something you're thinking about doing, the MSc does set you up quite well for this and a career in research. If you're not sure what you want to do yet, the project's a great way of trying out research to see if you like it, see if it's for you, and get a taste of what it's like working in an academic environment.
Any further questions?
Where we still have time, probably I just want to share about the environment at KEBI, like from my perspective as a student. I feel like KEBI, because I worked like between like, I have been through like several departments basically throughout my PhD project. So you kind of get like inside this department and that department. So one thing that I really like about KEBI is like everyone's like so close together. We are very diverse, but KEBI really feels like home and family. And then like during my PhD, definitely because like PhD student, we can have film club. We can have like you're gonna have like KEBI buddy for PhD student basically because like master student is like just like 1 year, but throughout my PhD, I get a KEBI buddy. We have KEBI dates. You can like go, like go out for a lunch date with like someone like more senior in your lab, and it's very nice. You have KEBI date, you have KEBI buddy. We have like sort of activities that gonna bring us together. So, like I'm like thousands miles away from my home, but I don't really feel like people always said, oh, PhD is a very lonely journey. But I think so I really need to be thankful that I'm at KEBI. I don't really feel that lonely bit because like I have like very strong and supportive environment at KEBI. So I think this is worth mentioning.
Yeah, if anyone's thinking of coming to UCL, UCL has a lot of societies and well-being and career development and different things that the students will be involved in. And we encourage you to be a part of that and a part of the society. It's a very multicultural place to be, and it's a very friendly MSc to be on. So I would always encourage you to kind of be part of the bigger picture that UCL can offer you within such a large community, such as London, where everything is on your doorstep. And if anyone is at UCL for the open day, do come and say hello to me. I like to talk to people. So please come and ask me any further questions, or come and ask me more about the course. I will be happy to come and chat to you. So if nobody has any further questions, I think maybe we should leave it there. And if anyone wants to come and see me, as I said, please do. Thank you for all of you for attending and for your interest. And we hope to see you soon.